said. I didn't plan on doing anything. Surfbone said he was going to. I can't really stop Surfbone.
It's just like weird to not tell people about, but anyways. Did you have like a time frame or something in mind?
No, we can start now. I was just gonna wait because you can see people are joining. So
all right. I will say I think I have like fewer claims than people might think I do. Like, my claim is just that the thing you cite as the potential isn't a character. Like the tiering itself, I don't really care. My opinion on tier 1 is that like it's all framework based anyways, so it's kind of pointless to compare from site to site because each site is going to set their standards differently.
I mean, yeah, but by reading the blog, if you read the beginning of it, it said that it was using character sets as definition.
Yeah, and I don't actually know what that one is off the top of my head. And even on versus battles, I have problems with tier 1s, so that's whatever.
All right, so seems like people are here. They're fun. You good?
That's a lot of people. Neat.
It's a good ego trip for myself.
Very important.
All right. So why don't you think the potential is real? I guess.
All right. Let me. Well, off the top of my head, I have like a short list that just had some stuff that I had in response to some stuff you said. But off the top of my head, it's something when I was looking around for it, there was no acknowledgement whatsoever that I could find from either Games Workshop or from like fan projects. And it's not like it's just some minor guardsman or whatever. It's not like a character you just like forget about. If everyone is going to be like seemingly missing the existence of this like major creator god figure that's
invite me,
then you would think that Games Workshop would want to correct the fans in like just forgetting about this.
I don't. For the record, I don't care what Games Workshop says. I care what the text itself says.
They're the ones who determine what a character is.
No, they aren't. What a character is and isn't is determined by our interpretation of the text, not because Games Workshop says whatever. Like a famous instance of this is when the Bone Singer was even made a thing, because the Bone Singer came from originally it was a fan conversion, and then it was put into Dawn of War, and then it was made canon eventually when they like put in codexes and stuff like that. Even for like the most stringy of people saying what canon is.
But wouldn't that not support your point because Games Workshop has to be the ones to put it in their own game?
No, my point was that after it became canon, by like the stringiest definition of the word canon, which would be in a codex or something like that. My interpretation of canon is that it would be whatever is consistent with the property, and the potential is more than consistent with the property.
Okay, but if they're in the game and if they're in a codex, then that's an acknowledgement from the people itself. That's not really.
Yeah, it is. I'm saying that would be like the most stringiest definition of the word canon. That was my point.
The most stringent.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just like a difference.
I think like no matter who you talk to, they would say if it's in a codex, it's canon no matter what.
Like, well, there's like parts of codexes that like are weird and outdated, but that's.
I mean, I think they're canon nonetheless. You might have to interpret them differently, but I think it's all canon.
No, I think that there's things that can be shown to be like outright contradictory, but that's not really relevant here.
Well, no, but that wouldn't be no. I don't think anything's inherently contradictory. I think there's only contradictory interpretations.
I think if you use the interpretation of it being all like, because I know the normal way you can get out and I think Games Workshop does this sometimes to cover their ass, where they just say it's like imperial propaganda or whatever. I think using that, you can use that for like a story perspective or whatever, but I don't think you should for like a versus debate, whatever.
I don't care what game, like I said, I don't care what Games Workshop says. It's that when we find this meaning in the text, there isn't like this hidden super truth we're uncovering. What happens is we read these words and we interpret them and come to our conclusion.
Okay, but then why would this conclusion not be able to be replicated anywhere else? What would be?
But it has to be.
Yeah, it kind of would.
Why?
Because if you're only finding a character on your own thing, and if your results can't be replicated elsewhere, then that would be an indication that your case isn't really like convincing others. Nobody else has this sort of.
With a vast verse like this, I don't see why something can't just have one appearance.
What? That's not what I'm saying though. I'm saying why is this like not represented as a character anywhere else I could find?
For one,
like, not even in other versus debating places.
Well, because I don't think like most people even actually read Warhammer. I think a majority of the fan base is a bunch of secondaries, actually.
I don't really think that's necessarily true. I see quite a bit of
No,
stuff.
it definitely
It's
is,
like-
dude. Like on Twitter, like
What do you mean by
I'm not,
secondaries, first off?
oh, secondary means somebody who doesn't actually consume the medium firsthand. So if for instance, a primary would be somebody who like read the Devastation of Baal. A secondary
Alright.
would be the person who like read the Reddit summary of it.
I was thinking you were meaning like secondary media, like the games or whatever.
No, you get your information secondhand, is what I mean.
All right, so all Warhammer itself, you'd be a primary source then.
Mm-hmm. For the most part, I do think like obviously there are like adaptations of certain things. Like I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there are like some adaptations and stuff like that I wouldn't consider primary. Like I wouldn't consider like the Imperial Guard's uplifting primer really a primary source because that is just an in-universe book. It's not really. I wouldn't consider that the same as if we're like reading from a guardsman's actual perspective.
Yeah, no, and I don't think most people would, or at least like they'd say that it's a book in universe and not like.
Well, I mean, I don't care what most people think. I care what's like evident. And my point still stands is I don't see why I should care if no one else has ever found this character before. Like I don't know why that affects it. Like that sure as hell.
Because if you have a stance, you'd want to convince other people of it.
No.
If nobody else is going with
their stance, I don't care about convincing other people.
That's like, not very useful.
Dog, if you cared about convincing people, then you quickly move away from what's true and you go to what's the most convincing.
Well, that's all that truth really is.
No, not at all, dude. If the truth was the most convincing thing, you wouldn't have misinformation out there.
I don't necessarily agree with that statement.
So if the truth was,
hold on. I think I poorly phrased that.
Truth was no.
Did Lucas actually do that? Which not really relevant, but
George Lucas likes to do that because he thinks that that's like the director's job. But if George Lucas actually did that, I would say George Lucas doing that is a rewrite.
I don't think that that's really the same example. There was nothing beforehand already.
No, there was tons of stuff written for the horror series priorhand.
No, not for the for the Clone Wars, the Star Wars. I was saying with Star Wars.
Oh no, there actually was. No, there actually was. George Lucas had plans for the prequel and sequel trilogy after Episode 5 was made.
Nothing published, though.
It doesn't matter if it's published.
That's what does matter if it's going to be considered.
No, it does matter.
No, it does.
No, because
it's going to be something that we're not going to agree on, then we may as well move on.
Because my issue is that like I don't understand why Games Workshop has to acknowledge every single thing in order for it to be like counted, I guess, when it's evident in their text. Like I think the text
that they are putting out, you can have an interpretation that isn't really supported, or
it is the
an interpretation that is denied.
So hypothetically, if it was mentioned in like another novel, right, like a more mainstream
novel, an interpretation. How do you support an interpretation?
Are we having multiple people do this or not?
You're saying something completely nonsensical, and say.
Yeah, you're not part of this.
Okay.
You gotta tell people ahead of time for your stuff.
And anyway, so hypothetically, if it was mentioned in like a novel, right, like a very popular one, would you agree it exists?
A very popular one. Yeah, in general, I'd push for these things showing up, or at least like being mentioned.
No, I'm asking you directly. If it appeared in a popular novel, would you agree it exists?
You're saying that it's like this one quote, but like transposed into a popular novel. Is that what you're asking about?
I'm asking, like, if it was mentioned, so, like, for example, let's say the Emperor had a cat, right? Like, he actually probably did have a cat, but, he has a cat, right? And you're like, oh, well, it's only mentioned in, like, this one time, and Games Workshop never talked about it, so it doesn't matter.
And then, like, the mention itself as well.
But then it's like, oh, in Master of Mankind, he brings up his cat, right? So,
I think that is a poor unit of comparison for reasons I stated beforehand. It's a lot easier to miss out on, like, a random cat or like a random Imperial Guardsman. It's pretty important for your entire top of the top figure to be missing entirely. That's not really.
I mean, I think the big problem was that no one read anything. I stand by that. Even now, people don't read shit.
I don't think that's. People don't read stuff, but I'm not sure
no one reads anything.
What I said about the difference in status between the hypothetical potential and the Emperor's cat or whatever.
Well, it's the exact same thing. It's a character, right? The only reason you think
I'm saying the status of the character would impact.
Yeah, but no, that's because you have this bias of being in the community where you think a character being powerful makes them more important.
No, you don't. Having someone who is at the top of your universe and has created everything is by definition going to make them important to their setting.
Not really. No, you can
nothing.
Characters
so that nothing can happen without them. They have the most possible influence over their setting if they have done everything indirectly.
To like the Tales of Eisenhorn or something like that, it doesn't matter, right? That's
the Eisenhorn theoretically can't happen if you're going to say
it might not be able to happen in this cosmological sense, right? But that's not the point.
Their importance to the actual universe of the thing.
The point is
how feasible it is that it's just never brought up again. If it's just never brought up again, it probably just.
It doesn't have to be though. You're in here with this bias of when. Why does that have to be the? Even if it's mentioned once.
It's not only just only mentioned once, but it's also just not recognized by anybody at all. Yeah, no. It's just something that would have impact on literally everything. You've set it up in a way that everything that can happen possibly is happening indirectly because it's one thing. Something like that is going to have a long-lasting, pervasive impact. It never showing up again to me is just an indication that it got quietly dropped.
Well, I think it's always showing up.
It's too central a figure in the cosmology to just never be mentioned again and not cause any sort of
you do realize that in that part I literally explained here's offshoots of what could be considered the same potential going into effect with Nagash talking about the cycles of the universe over and over.
You seem to be talking about something different though, as you have in the I can post stuff in debate, right?
Yeah, sure.
The quote that you gave was
there's three. They're all from Solar.
This one specifically talks about the.
Oh no, that's a different quote. That would be contained within the potential because what the potential says is that what's it called? Wolf has its own perceptions, and then after perceptions, more potential follows, and then unreal. But I'm not reading the whole thing. I don't feel like it. By chaos waxing and waning, that would be part of the potential inherently.
You seem to be using this as an example of the potential. It says that this cycle is the most recent by virtue of being the most potent one.
Yeah,
which is coming right after you saying that. Coming right after you saying that this potential is cyclical and that the universe is called.
Yeah, it's pretty evident.
Cycle is the same.
It's pretty evidently that
consistent.
I mean, if you why wouldn't it be consistent?
Because if the potential of being this thing that's going to be top to top, everything comes off of it. Why are the Chaos Gods on the same level as it?
It's not.
Why is the cycle now Chaos Gods?
Wait, where are the Chaos Gods on the same level as it?
Because this cycle is specifically talking about the cycle of the Dark Gods doing shit.
Yeah, it's talking about how it's talking about how chaos
the cycle begins when they do stuff, and not
because chaos waxes, right? Chaos waxes, it gets stronger. They send out usually it's an ever chosen. And then chaos, either they lose and they get pushed back, and that's when humanity waxes.
Yeah, they just gain they gain footholds that don't go away, as this quote says.
Yeah, it's because chaos stuck around in the old world till Archaon eventually blew it up, and that was chaos's victory. And then after that, humanity waxed, and that was during the Age of Myth and stuff like that, before the Eldritch Tempest blew chaos to the what we know as creation.
Okay, but I'm not disputing that chaos is a cycle. That's pretty clear. I'm saying that it seems odd to use this as an example under the potential being a cycle because it seems to be referring to a different cycle entirely.
I think it's the same because life would obviously have perceptions, and then from perceptions came consciousness, and so on and so on. And then while that's all happening within the unrealized, the metaphysical. Those powers of the unrealized would grow, and that is what the potential actually says.
Hold on a second.
It's like the third and fourth line.
I control F Unreal and I'm not finding it.
It's in a picture.
Oh, all right. Yeah, hold on. Your blog is really long, so I got it.
Actual creators. It's Anchored. Anchor is the actual term, if anybody didn't know that.
Actual creators. Which picture is it in?
It's the very first one.
I need to transcript that or some shit. So what part are you referring to? You mind just I guess take a cropped screenshot of it and post it.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Right there.
Right, in time creation.
In time creation relies onto itself life, and life in turn spawned perception, and following perception came consciousness, and with consciousness so followed intelligence, and from intelligence sprang conception. From that came the word that bind all, you have to let me finish, that bind all things into conception. And so the words made new conceptions, and new conceptions increased intelligence, and increased intelligence broadened consciousness, and broadened consciousness deepened perception. And deepened perception came to know life more fully, and perception understood the form and process of all that was realized and came to permeate the raw potential of all that was yet unrealized. Within the endless potential of the unrealized.
Oh, I was mishearing you. I thought you were saying unrealized and not unrealized.
Yeah, right. And within the endless potential of the unrealized, conceptions began to take their own form. Obviously, the chaos gods are concepts. That's 101 here. Yeah, in the great paradigm awakened.
Yeah, so this is describing all their formation. That doesn't seem to be the same thing as them waxing and waning in power.
No, but it's saying because words form new concept. Like the third thing is literally a cycle. It's going over and over. So when you have
multiple cycles running concurrently.
Wait, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, your mic.
I said there can be multiple cycles running concurrently, though. I'm saying that
this cycle, there can, but
this is cyclical, but it doesn't seem to be referring to
what chaos doing inherently is will attack. People will know about chaos now, and by fighting chaos, you're contributing it to it as well, and that spawns all sorts of things. It is clearly part of the same thing.
Okay, but they come into being once to get rid of them back.
But they're not coming. They're not coming into what after they've existed. Yeah, this is
they're realizing into themselves multiple things and spawning.
Yeah, it talks about them coming into existence, but once they have, right, those actions can still fuel them. Like the Eldari birthed Slanesh by being heathens, but then when they were heathens again, right, it just fuels Slanesh instead of making Slanesh over and over.
Then this wouldn't be the same cycle, though.
It's clearly the same thing, though. I don't like.
It wouldn't be on the level of. Let me get one of your other quotes real quick.
It'd be above.
Tabs open.
Yeah, it'd be above chaos if that's what you're trying to say, because it literally made the Sea of Souls. You read earlier.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But if you have this potential above chaos, you have all the cycle stuff referring to chaos, then how is the potential itself the cycle?
The potential is like the cycle that chaos is participating in the same way that what's the word? In the same way that like when our Earth goes around the sun, that's merely participating in the sun going around the galaxy, right?
If you were to define the potential itself as the cycle,
it's like
consider that as a character. I consider it as well a cycle.
I would consider it a character in the same way that we consider almost like the source a character, except for earlier on in the quote, what's called Tekla says that it realized onto itself, so it is clearly a character.
That's potential being realized is just like how people kind of talk.
No, I probably said it wrong. I'm trying to find the exact part where he says it.
I have it here. I'll post it real quick.
Absolutely.
If it'll zoom.
Yeah, the endless potential is its own existence. So
yeah, the existence of potential being realized.
It's realizing that it
getting to it.
It's a character.
It's not realized as in like a perceptive state. It's not going to show.
It's realizing like if it's like, oh, I exist. That's like I think, therefore I am. It's real, dude. Like I don't.
I think that you're using the wrong definition of realization here. I think that this refers to realization. Exactly was achieved.
I think That's what it might mean later on. I think right there it's saying that, oh, it's real. Like, oh,
I think I would have to disagree, which is why I don't.
I mean, you can feel free to disagree, but at that point you're saying, oh, well, it's not a character, but still this force, it's still there. So, sure.
Yeah, I don't really dispute that there's a cycle. I think that is that there's like sort of stuff, and I wouldn't call it like the potential. I think that's potential in the normal sense, and not like as a title, given that it has. I don't think that you can use the capitalization to say that, given that it capitalizes like every other word.
No, I think
yeah, I'm not disputing that there's a cycle, but I'm disputing that the cycle itself is a character.
Saying like,
and if it's not, I think that's just like a wig, and I think that's just like a standards thing.
Like saying it's like not called the potential is really pedantic. Like I don't think like we can call it blah blah for all I care, right? That's not the point.
Yeah, no, that's not really the point. I was saying that's not really the point.
It should like if
that was just like an aside thing.
Like, the same point of like, oh, I've got potential and nobody's talking about it. Well, for one, right? Like I understand if people like don't call it the potential, like whatever, right? We can call it whatever.
No, I disagree with equating the two, because even me saying that I don't think I'd call it potential, that wasn't really an argument. That was just like me saying something to the aside.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But my point is that like it not having a codified name also does lead into why no one ever talks about that and that nobody reads anything.
I think if your character doesn't have anything to refer to it by, I think you're hard pressed to say that you have a character if you can't even refer to something.
No, I don't think that's true at all.
What would be examples of characters that you can't refer to besides this? Then what would you?
I could just write a character right now. I don't know why it has to be like a codified thing.
But then it would be like, what's your name? Then you just have like Dante's character, or like
and what I say in the blog
you also have to be writing them by like having them like do stuff presumably. Yes.
Yeah, I could write the same quote, and it would just be, like effectively the same quote.
Okay,
and then
but if you write the same quote, then I'd also say that it's not a character.
I'm saying I could effectively write the same thing. Like all this stuff happens, and then never actually name it. Like I don't know why you have to have a name for a character.
Yeah, I don't think events inherently are characters.
I think an event can be a character. Sure, why not?
I don't think it's like impossible to be a character, because fiction is going to be.
I think anything could be a character, dude.
And I do not agree, which is where this comes from.
I mean, you can personify anything if you want to. Like, people personify time, and that debatably doesn't even exist.
I don't think that this is personified, though.
It's saying
if you're saying, let's go back to the event thing, because that's like a lot less nebulous than like literally everything ever. That's like
it's saying it realized its own existence.
And as we said with that, I believe that you are reading into it with a different definition of realized, and one that I feel.
You read it and it's like, oh, hey, it realized its own existence, and then the universe and all planes of existence that ran parallel to it were created.
Like, realizing potential is like a thing that is like a statement people say, which is just like as opposed to like awareness.
It's not saying that something realized its endless potential. It's saying this endless potential realized its own existence. So Teclis is referring.
Potential was realized.
It's saying the endless potential is realizing something, and what's it realizing? Its own existence. That's what
I do not agree with that reading.
Neat. I think it's the most consistent reading.
What'd you say?
Neat. You can disagree with it. You have to show like an alternate interpretation that's more consistent.
Which I have stated is that it is the potential being realized.
So why would it say it realized its own existence then?
Could have funky wording or some shit. I don't know. Realizing its own existence, because that's the only thing that's there.
Then you don't actually have a reason then.
No, I do. That's the only reason. Well, no. The potential is the only thing that's there. So I'm reading this not as a character, but as potential in the literal sense. It's like there is nothing, but there could be stuff. So this is going to be realized. The fact that there could be stuff.
It's saying there is nothing except for the endless potential, right? Which I do agree. Like if there wasn't enough stuff there, you could say that, right?
The potential for these things.
Yeah, but then it doesn't say the endless potential realized like some random shit. It says it realized its own existence. It's saying
if it realized other stuff, then it would probably actually be it. because you can't.
Well, no, if it realized other stuff, that would contradict the beginning of the quote where nothing existed.
Well, yeah, I can just be wrong. But like, what I'm saying with that is, if it's going to realize other stuff, the word realize doesn't work with the same meaning in other contexts as it does with the idea.
I think it works fine because it says it's non-existent. I think the later part of the sentence modifies what realize mean.
Hold on. You keep on cutting me off. I'm saying that the word realize, like, realizing potential is a phrase. Are you going to contest that?
I 100% agree. It is a phrase.
All right. Realizing, like, I don't know what's in my room. Like, realizing my lamp isn't. There's only the other definition of that there. There's not like the alternative way to weasel out of it. So I'm saying that if it was realizing most other things, I think that would be, even though they're not supposed to be there, I think that would be a stronger case for it being a specific entity, because there isn't the alternative definition to contest it.
The problem with that is like, of course, like if you rewrote quotes, you can make like the case for whatever you want it to say, right?
Well, you're saying this in response to you saying that if it realized other stuff, it wouldn't be a character. I don't.
No, my point is, it's like it would, if it was like, oh, the endless potential like saw like stuff, right? It'd be really hard to write, and it would also be like really weird for like this like really weird knowledge claim for Teclis to know about the other stuff out there at this point because he wasn't that smart yet. He also learns about it
weird and stuff, but then
he learns about it later on. But
how would that lead to it not being a character as opposed to just being like poorly written?
I don't know why quality.
Or did I like mishear you again or something? Cause,
I think you did. My point is like I don't think what's it called? I don't think it's consistent to try to say that realized its own existence is the same thing as saying realizing its own potential.
I think it is because it's not. It's defined as the potential for these things.
Yeah, and then
just
it's
like potential.
It's realizing that it exists, which is saying, "Oh, I'm real." It's not. It's basically conscious at this point.
I do not.
Also, fuck the idea of consciousness, high key, but
fuck the idea of consciousness. That's
high key. Fuck it. Then you get into like talk of like, oh, you know, you like experience that through sense experience, and
I do know of like philosophers who like contest the idea of consciousness and stuff. That was just a little random. So I was like, what?
Yeah, it's something I had to throw in there for the folks at home.
Shout out. No, I think the sticking point here is that it's just the first sentence of it. It's kind of like the endless potential for these things, as opposed to just like.
And my point still stands from earlier too. And it's like if you don't want to consider it a character, fine, whatever. It's still a force. Like it's still there. Like in the similar way of like the level of like pedantic when people are like, oh, Azathoth versus like the creator, and it's like, well, the creator isn't actually a character. It's like a room. So
I mean, if you want to say that. The problem I see with that is that this entire thing is over me saying the potential isn't a character. So if you're saying that me saying the potential isn't a character is just pedanticism, then
like it wasn't real.
Okay,
I will go grab the screenshots, my guy.
Yeah, I said it was a fake character.
Yeah, but it's not fake. It's real. Like if you're saying like, oh well, it's not.
If I say something's a fake character, I don't necessarily mean that it like does not exist in any form whatsoever. It means that I don't think it's a character.
Like, I do think it is a character because it says it realizes its own existence. So
yes, I am aware that you think it's a character. But you were just saying that me saying it's not a character is pedanticism. Yeah, that's what this entire thing is about. So if it's pedanticism,
I think it's like the
why
level
do you
of
care
like
enough to drag me out here and start up this thing?
I care enough because if you're talking shit. I also wanted to talk about like the other stuff you said in the screenshots as well. But
I think I just said that like High 1A Dr. Mario was funny, but like I make fun of the 1A tiers on like versus battles as well. So it's just like me being like.
You seem to have a problem with like everything being High 1A that was above the warp.
What did you say? I don't think I even said anything about your Warhammer tiering specifically because I just assumed that was just like a framework difference. I think other people did, and I was just like, CSAP.
I'll grab it. Anyways, I do think it's a character. It says it realizes its own existence. I don't think that anything being mentioned once is a disqualifier for anything.
Hold on. I think we got to a point that was interesting that we skipped over where you were saying, if I don't think that it's a character, then would I agree it's a force? That's what you were saying, yes?
Yeah, I'm basically saying, do you agree it exists? Right.
All right. So, I don't think that like the idea of potential is like a force. I think that there's absolutely like a cycle, but I think that by potential they mean potential in like the normal sense.
So why do you think? All right. So why? What's leading you to that conclusion, I guess is the best way to phrase it.
In large part, the first sentence, where they talk about how there's nothing, but there's the potential for these things because in the absence, anything can be possible. So that leads me to read the potential just in the way that the normal reading of the word potential, as opposed to potential as a type.
I think that's like the issue. If you are attempting to now read it in this way where endless potential can only mean the generic phrase and not a hypothetical character. Or
and we're reading it in a way where it means a character. Which is just us reading it in a different way.
Actually have reading the quote, yes. Sure.
Which is just us having a different reading of the quote, and as such, me saying.
Well, yeah, and I think my reading is. I think my reading of it being a creation force is more consistent.
I don't know how you come to that conclusion of being more consistent if, by your own admission, it only appears once. What else would it be consistent with? I don't think that there's much room for it to be consistent or inconsistent with all that much.
No, I think there is.
Have like weird shit later on. Where it's
this actually goes to my previous question I asked you, and that is because you were trying to do oh, no one's mentioned it, so is it really canon? And then I asked you if it appeared in a major novel, would you consider it canon or whatever?
Off this quote specifically, I still probably wouldn't think it's a character.
No, I'm asking if it appeared in a major novel, would you consider it I hate using the word, but you get what I mean by that word.
Canon. Well, I mean, we do define canonicity differently, so I do kind of need to know how you are going to define that.
It counts, I guess. So if we were talking about, this kind of plays into a quote. I forgot in what book it is. Parrot will yell at me after this about what book it was. But they're talking about if you were collect all the works of Nietzsche, what would you include? Would you include his post-it notes? So if we were
Nazi sister editing it. I mean, all the works. I think works has a specific definition because that is a problem that academics run into as to what to consider. So I feel with these cases where you get really ambiguous, you usually will just define things, so it's easier to work with, and you're not just stuck in this
if we were collecting all the stuff that is part of the world.
I'm sorry, I think you cut out for a second there.
Yeah, I read Bard for a second. If we were collecting all,
you cut out again.
Right. Yeah, that's called.
You just give it a few minutes, I guess.
That's weird.
Yeah, internet problems.
All right.
Less than I usually have with this, actually.
So, do I sound better? Or?
Right now, you seem to be working.
All right. So, if we were collecting all the material for researching Warhammer, right?
Yeah.
And we come across this quote, and you're well, nothing ever talks about this apparently. So you said we should not talk about it effectively, right?
I mean, you can talk about it if you want to, but I wouldn't consider it relevant or relevant enough to profile.
Yeah. So if it was mentioned in a major novel, would you consider it relevant?
Well, also that depends on how you mean considering it, because as we did agree, there's definitely a cycle of some sort, even if the cycle is
I'm not even speaking of it as a cycle. I'm saying if hypothetically someone just mentioned the potential as a creator, right? In a major novel,
that's kind of the crux of the whole thing, then, isn't it? Because if you're stipulating that it's something that I agree is a character.
No, I'm not even. If you're, I'm saying it's a thing at this point. It's a noun.
It's a noun. The word potential. Well, I don't deny that that's a thing here.
So
I think it's potential.
No, I'm not saying do you deny the potential. I'm saying I'm speaking for a more canonicity standpoint than I am from a.
I mean, canonicity-wise, I think that this quote is in effect. I just think that potential is defined in the normal way of potential, and I think that that's going to be something that depends not on where it is, but on the specific quote. So you'd have to give me a quote that you're sticking in a popular book. Supposedly.
I'm asking hypothetically here, because I don't feel like typing at the moment. Because earlier you were hypothetical. Earlier you were
hypothetical. Hold on. I'll let you go first. What were you saying?
Earlier you were saying that what's called, because Games Workshop never talks about it, that it can't possibly be this all powerful creator force, right? That you did say that. So
I was saying that was a problem with it.
Yeah, and I'm addressing that problem. I'm trying to address that problem now. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but I'm saying that that's still going to be dependent on what the quote is, because if they dump this quote into I don't know, fucking Talon of Horus. Why not? It'd be really out of place there, but whatever. If they don't have quote there, I'd still say that he's saying potential in the sense of the word potential being defined.
So, like, what if like something that was like relevant to like the old ones, for instance, was like called like the infinite potential that is the source of all realities, referring to something that's beyond like magic as well, like in the same quote.
I'm sorry, I kind of like. What were you? Can you repeat that?
Oh, so like, what if they're talking about like something to do with like the old ones, right? Like they're talking about like
CTAM precursors. Well, not quite.
Technically, the old ones should be older because time fuckery. But so the old ones have like, well, let's say they have like batteries or something like that. And it's like, oh, the batteries of the old ones. This harnesses like the infinite potential that is like the source of all realities.
I'd still probably think that that's just the word potential as like what the word potential usually means, as opposed to potential being like a proper. Look, I think an important distinction to draw here is potential as a proper noun and just potential as a noun. Is that what we're getting at?
I think it is effectively because.
So I think potential as a noun is there no matter where you put it, including in this one. I don't think potential as a proper noun would be there either one. But I think that's going to depend on the specifics of the quote.
Yeah. At this point, we aren't talking about whether the potential is a thing. We're talking about this. At this point, it's kind of presupposing that it's a thing. I'm not holding that against you. I'm saying, well, like assuming it's a thing.
If we are to presuppose it's a thing, then yes, I would say it counts if it's in like a popular book. But if we're also to presuppose a thing, I'd just say it counts even if it's here. Because
you weren't arguing that before, though.
Not quite. I was saying that. It seems kind of sketchy to call something a character when seemingly nobody else has mentioned it at all. That seems to give credence to the fact that it's being read just as the word potential and not.
Yeah, and my point
as a proper. I think it's being read as a noun and not as a proper noun.
Yeah, my point is that this like powerful creator force, if it was mentioned in a popular novel, would you then say, well, it's not sketchy anymore? It's just that nobody reads. Would you agree with that?
Well, I just answered it. But in a different way. Because I was saying, again, potential as a proper noun versus potential as a noun. If you have... wait, hold on. Why don't you... Look. I think that what's going to be relevant is going to be the specifics of the quote itself and not where it is, necessarily. I'm saying that where it isn't was credence for the other reading.
Am I being heard? If I'm being heard, could somebody at me in debate?
As it's being read. What'd you say? Nobody added you in debate that I can see.
You guys can hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you speak real fast? I can't hear anything. Yeah, I was about to say I can't hear anything. I'm going to reconnect. That was really weird.
Is it working? Or
he just left the VC.
Oh my God.
He's probably going to join back in a second. I can hear you fine. I don't know why. Yeah, Hashi can't hear you.
That's weird. I mean, Discord kind of fucks up the audio sometimes. So. Like, I have to mess around with the audio settings, like, half the time when I connect to the VCs.
You were fine. It was all on my end.
All right. So we just got kind of derailed there.
I'm not talking about whether it's a character or anything. I'm saying, like, because it is clear, like, independent of whether it's a character, right? It is clearly this force that is occurring.
I don't know if you can define the idea of potential as a force, but, like, that's not even related to the character. That's just like, what does the word mean?
Later on in the quote, it's clearly like still talking about the same idea that's going on, right? Like,
if one uses idea instead of force, then yes, there's definitely the idea that there is like the potential for shit to happen.
Yeah, and this potential realizes its own existence, and then stuff happens.
I thought you said you didn't want to get into the specifics.
No, I'm just reciting the scan. I'm not like, yeah. So
if we're going to use, I guess, the word like idea instead of force, because that's like that's kind of particular.
Sure.
Then yes, I would say that like there is definitely an idea of there at one point being potential for more. But I'd also say that applies to this as well. Like, I think I probably phrased it in the beginning. I don't think that this is like non-canon or whatever. I think that this.
So your stipulations then is that like Yeah, I don't really know what word. Your reservations about it was that nobody's talked about it, I guess is what is real.
Yeah, I think I didn't phrase it the best. That was in the sense of the specific reading of the quote. Nobody's talking about like the potential as a proper noun. Like potential is a noun, of course nobody's going to talk about that. It's a random noun in Warhammer, and Warhammer is like 800 books long or whatever.
All right.
So I'm saying that due to that, I think that potential is just being read in the way that you'd normally read potential.
Yeah. All right.
As opposed to being read as a proper noun.
Yeah. So we're on the we're on the same page now of understanding what you meant. So the next thing I would say is I think that you're using this bias of what people are talking about to inform the reading rather than reading it as is within the book.
Well, I read it before I looked up like Warhammer potential.
Yeah, but I think like the way, because you're saying no, because you read it and you're like, well, I don't know about this. Let me look it up, right? And then obviously, as you agree, Warhammer is a very big verse. So yeah, I'm pretty sure
and what I found just reinforced my reading of it.
Yeah, it's in now you have formed this bias with it.
That's just taking a stance.
Yeah, but you have this.
I don't think you can really claim to be unbiased if you're going to argue a point.
Well, I'm saying
it would be weird to not be biased for your point.
No, I'm not saying you aren't biased. I'm not saying no one's biased. I'm saying you aren't ignoring the bias to read it. It's
Well, I read it before I looked it up, so
but you're like, oh, I don't believe this is like the thing, and then you look it up, and then you're like, oh, no one's talking about it. Like, how can this be the supreme being or whatever?
Yeah, I didn't believe it was a thing. I looked it up, didn't find anything.
And now you have that pre-existing. Yeah, my point is that you have this pre-existing bias. So I'm trying to explain.
How is it pre-existing if it came into being as you established after I informed that it?
We haven't talked before. Now, I'm saying you have the bias from before when you haven't talked to me yet, and then now we're talking about it. I think you misunderstood what I said there.
Okay, I think you might be using bias in like a bit of a weird.
You have this like preconceived notion about what it is now, right? You're like, oh, you read it, right? And then
my conceptions of what it is would begin when I read it.
No, I'm saying when you're in here. I'm not saying when you were. I'm not saying before. I'm saying now that you're in here, because you've read this before you've ever talked to me, right? So,
yeah, but at this point, if you're going to use bias in that broadly, you're basically just saying I'm coming in with a stance, which
I'm saying you came in with the stance that you formed, right? And I'm saying you are now using that stance as like this lens to read through the same quote that we've been reading through.
Which is how people argue. They have their position and they find evidence for their position.
No, not at all. No, I don't know who you've been I don't know who you've been arguing with, but you're supposed to look at the evidence and then come to a conclusion.
No, if you want to argue a specific point, you're going to find evidence that is useful for you.
That's a confirmation bias, dude.
No, that's how advocacy works.
That's literally confirmation bias. Like if that's
not what hold on.
If you have a stance and you're looking for evidence that supports it, that's a confirmation bias. You're looking for stuff that
you have your stance, and you are supporting your stance with your evidence.
If you have a stance, right? Like the sky is blue, and then I cite how
hold on. The thing here is we're not doing science or something where you're supposed to be neutral. We're doing a debate. You have a position.
Wait, I don't know why you can't be neutral in a debate.
I don't see why you would, because you are advocating your point.
Yeah, you can, but the point of it is that we're supposed to come to a conclusion, right? Like we're comparing these ideas together.
I don't necessarily agree. I'm more into the idea of a debate as a competition. Because ultimately, how people think their characters are, you can do whatever. I don't care that much about it. Instead, I rather.
If you think of a debate as a competition, that would explain what you were saying at the very beginning about convincing people. No, I care about what.
I think that's what the use in it is.
No, I care about what the truth is. I care what
law.
I care about what's the most consistent explanation. I care about what's the most useful interpretation. All these sorts of things. I could give less of a damn if people are.
If you say useful on that useful point, what would the difference in use be here?
So like the most useful interpretation would be like while you Star Wars. Yeah, I was about to get to that. Let's say we're like watching Star Wars, right? My interpretation of Star Wars is that the stuff happens, and your interpretation is, well, none of it happens. It's all a dream, and it's like, well, what use do I have of saying it's all a dream?
I mean, what use do you have in saying it's not? Like, I don't think that's correct, but there's no use.
Now I can actually talk about what happens. I can say, well, how, what's Luke's life going to be like after this?
Yeah, you can also just do that, like whether it's a dream or not. I think the best ultimately just kind of doesn't do much.
If it's all a dream, then it's like, well, what use do I have with saying it's a dream? I might as well just treat it as real.
Yeah, you don't have use either way in it.
No, but the point is that we're talking about the events of Star Wars, and by adding in, well, I think it's all a dream, it's not useful. You're not adding anything.
But the question would be, is it founded?
Is it like
if it's able to be supported, then I would be adding stuff. If it's not adding anything, then like I don't think I'd have anything to support that.
Well, yeah, obviously.
You can always say what you're adding is just like a new angle of conversation or whatever. You can say that about.
Wait, could you pause for like a minute? I need to let my cat in. Give me a moment.
All right, sure.
My cat. Sorry, I literally couldn't hear her. She was scratching at the door, so that's why I had to say something.
I just said sure. So.
No, I meant before that. That's why. Yeah, that's why I interrupted there.
Yeah. So for use of the dream thing, well, there's, I guess in usefulness, it's just like fostering. That's not a fucking word. I'm missing the word right now. Fostering, yes. Fostering discussion from a different angle. That'd be the use in like making.
Well, I don't think like, because if you just say, well, if you just saying it's a dream doesn't add anything more to just talking about it as normal. So I don't think it's very useful.
But then that would mean that it's the same usefulness as normality.
No, because the interpretation. So when we're like talking about interpretations, it's like, oh well, this is what I think Star Wars is, and you're like, well, actually, it's all Luke's dream, and then it's like, well, what happens?
Then you get into why do you think it's Luke's dream? Where does that come from? What supports this?
Yeah, and then you get to the point of like, well, what actually supports it, right? And then that's a whole different discussion.
That would be the use that you'd have is in fostering that different discussion, which is essentially the same use as not doing that.
Yeah, but then we can do that with like anything you make up about a series. And then I think just talking about the series as is a better discussion.
I think that use is not, because of that, I don't think that use is like necessarily a very specific descriptor unless you're going to have a specific goal.
I think
it's useful to who?
I do agree that different people.
And from that, you judge whether something's useful.
I do agree that different,
in nebulous terms, is this useful? Because then you run into the thing that you post. It's like anything can be useful, but who cares? So.
Yeah, I do agree that like it can be useful to different people, but the point is if like if we're like adding stuff in, it's like, well, what does this really add to a discussion? Right? Like
So useful to a discussion. So what is your purpose of your discussion?
Useful to like the reading of it, I guess it's a better word, right? Like,
so then what purpose are you trying to accomplish through the reading? Because I think that
I don't think there has to be a purpose
just like for reading. But obviously, if you're reading it to try to make as many characters as possible, that's not what.
No, I don't think there has to be a purpose to the reading. No, I don't know.
Because I'm saying in defining use with.
Yeah.
I think that use is more or less meaningless if you don't set a purpose. Because of a reason that you yourself outlined, where you were saying in response to me saying with the discussion, there's like, oh, you can say that about anything. I agree with that, which is why we need to specify what we're looking to do when evaluating.
Yeah, and what we're looking to do here is we're trying to explain like the Warhammer cosmology, obviously, and we have to reconcile this.
So in explaining the cosmology, why would it not be useful for me to read potential in the way that you would normally read potential?
I'm not saying it wouldn't be useful. I think it's more not even more useful. I think it's more consistent because of the realized its own existence to say that it's a thing.
If you're going to move away from the use case entirely and go back to the consistency thing, which we discussed earlier on, then why?
No, I'm not moving away. My point was never that it's more or less useful to say that it's a force or a character. I'm saying I've always been saying it's more consistent for it to be a character due to the realized.
I know you think it's more consistent.
Yeah.
But you were saying earlier, you're thinking the point of the debate was like in particular to find use. So I was wondering how would that apply here? And
So
you seem to be saying
so usefulness would be, well, oddly enough, someone actually left the server over this, believe it or not, what I'm about to say.
What?
Yeah, so someone way back, someone was like, they did top like 10 supreme beings like 3 years ago or something like that.
People get way too into that shit.
No, it gets better. And the guy's like Zinch, maybe, I don't know. Warhammer doesn't really have one. And then I like replied to it, using the reply function. I'm like, this aged like milk, and then he left.
Okay, that's certainly something.
Yeah, really calm. But it's 3 years. Like if you have a bad take 3 years ago, just like it's 3 years, whatever.
Yeah, like you can easily just flip that around and make you look like the weirdo for like caring about something 3 years ago. It's like okay, but like whatever.
You could have.
That's kind of funny.
Well, you could have BTF mode me to like oblivion, but
yeah, you left yourself so. That was funny, but we're getting a little off topic.
Yeah, but my point. My point's always been that it's more. I think it's more consistent for it to be more consistent with like the sentence structure for it to be its own thing, or to be its own character. That I was glancing at something.
I don't think it's more consistent with the sentence structure. So with us being at pass here.
So why do you think realized its own existence would refer to like as like an idea?
Because the potential is the only thing that's mostly because the other sentences more clearly establish it as just potential in improper. I don't think improper noun is right.
Why can't it be
proper noun versus proper noun versus regular noun? I think the other sentences more clearly refer to it in its regular nouns. And potential being realized so the word realized, unlike in almost any other context, would not immediately key off, oh, it's something with consciousness.
Yeah, but I don't think like the other sentences necessarily contradict the first. Have the potential as like this nebulous force, but also in a form of a character as well. I don't think all characters need to be like uber personified, like almost like a Greek god. I think you can have like
earlier. I think we just have different definitions of a character when we were talking about events and characters, and I was saying that I don't think an event is necessarily.
I mean, if you're going to say that at that point, then it's no longer what's called. I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly. Then it becomes very odd for you to say in the screenshots that it's a fake character and not.
I don't think it's a character.
And no, you let me finish there. I think it's very odd to say that it's a fake character and not how do you call this a character, because especially when
it's getting pedantic. If your specific harping is like harping, that's not. If your specific gripe is with like the specific word, then that's like a little weird, especially when it's on like a Discord server in like the middle of the night.
Well, the issue is that VSB has fake characters having profiles.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, if your complaint is that versus Battle Wiki has problems too, I'll probably just agree with you unless it's my shit. Like I complain about versus battles quite a bit. I actually have stuff that I'm planning on doing to fix some of the issues that I have.
You guys have like the writer as one character for DC, which is really dumb.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on that. That's DC. I don't. There's obnoxious. I try to deal with them as little as possible.
There's a famous example I give of how dumb it is to have the writer as one character, but the issue is that the example that I give is like actually true in DC. So
I think that Kep at one point tried to get rid of it, but I think your problem here is that if you're going to bring that up as a point, you would have to suppose that I'm acting as some sort of like ambassador of versus battles or whatever, and that I'm not willing to just say like, yeah, look at problems.
I'm not making like a formal point out of it. I'm saying it's really ironic that you attempted to criticize me for having a fake character when you guys participate at a place that actually has fake characters in a similar
character. I mean, you got a problem with one of my profiles, I think that would be a better point to make. But like,
I mean, you didn't even.
That's like a weird thing to use.
You didn't even say like I forgot what my name, my character stats is. I don't know. As long as like my name is.
Dante on Discord.
Yeah, you're not like Dante on Discord as a fake character. No, you're like character stats profiles as a fake character.
Because that's the website it's on.
Well, yeah, but for one, we don't hold single interpretations here. Hoorah! But for 2, that my point is that under that same standard, you would be at fault because Versus Battles has fake characters. And
yeah, I just say yes.
Yeah,
Versus Battles does have problems. I complain about them a lot.
Yeah, that's gonna get clipped.
Is it going to get clipped?
It's definitely getting. Yeah,
the fact that I complain about Versus Battles isn't a secret. Like I'm the contrarian or whatever. So.
Oh no, you're not ready for level of contrarian. Naya's in here.
Oh no. Yeah.
But yeah,
I just Wiki admin exposed for complaining about the same stuff he complained about in his threads.
Yeah, it's gonna have like a Doritos logo on the.
I'm gonna get like interrogated by like Super Bear Neo or whatever. God, that stuff was quite something to watch.
Super Bear Neo banned me from a server, but we're getting off track.
Nice.
I'm also banned from FCOC as well.
What did you do on FCOC?
When everybody was leaving VSB like 6 months ago, I made that meme where it's like, come to Versus Battles we have, and it was like a bunch of like the bad stuff that goes on.
Well, yeah, no, that's why you got banned.
Oh no, that wasn't it. They thought it was funny, and then someone's like, oh, like CSAP's one to talk or whatever, and then me not escalating, I'm like, no, I think CSAP's fine, and then they escalated, trying to like actually insult me, you know.
Yeah, it depends on the person. I mean, a lot of people will just be like, "Hot."
Yeah, but I'm not escalating at this point either. I'm just like, you know, if you want to like actually talk about it, we can get in call real fast. And then he's like, oh, it's like typical of you to be like a VC goon or whatever. And then I got banned.
Yeah, so. I mean, also if you're like saying that like Versus Battles has like problematic bans or whatever, like I agree, which is why I am part of HR and have undone a few of them.
Oh no, I'll grab the meme eventually. It'll take me a while.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Because I think I saw it before I last did it. Was it back? Although 6 months ago, I don't remember what's specifically going on because I haven't been as active as of late.
Like 6 months ago, Discord time is different from real time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably know if there was like some controversy that you told me, but like I don't use the site too much that much.
It was it was before Matt got banned, but after like 30 people were leaving, like a day.
Oh yeah, no, that's actually not something I know what you're talking about then.
Yeah,
unless you.
If I find it, I'll DM it to you.
If you find it, just like send it to me. I'll tell you my opinion on it. But.
Can I ask you?
Getting back on track a bit. Well, I guess we weren't that far off because you were saying that your issue was that I said it was a fake character, while Battles has things that you don't like.
I think. Sorry, I don't
think it's inherently hypocritical of me to do so because I just don't make any claim to agree with the Versus Battle stuff.
I'm saying it's hypocritical in the context of how the screenshot was presented. Obviously, like I can't know
because I can just like go find it. Probably.
Here, let me. I really wish Discord would let you have like 5 instances open. I don't like this having.
I mean, you can have you can do it in like your browser in like incognito tabs with like alternate email accounts if you really want.
No, I mean like I want like my account, but I want like different channels open all the time.
Yeah, I think that'd be a bit much for my taste, but you know,
I want the option.
Much come bad out of.
Give me a second. I'm grabbing a screenshot.
That's the other one. Someone did post that. I think people posted that in the server and people laughed at it.
Everybody posts everything everywhere. That's how it goes around.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know if that got you banned off of the site, but like in the server, people laughed at that. Isn't that just like Matt?
AFY. We can talk about that later. I don't really care about FCOs. Oh yeah, that was right. Meme Parrot. Yeah, that one's good. Yeah.
I thought that was you because you're both purple. Wait, you aren't even purple. I'm just stupid.
Yeah, I'm like green. I wanted to be teal.
I'm purple. I can't read.
Yeah, so Matt is the guy in the top right. That is Matt.
Zephyr. Well, Matt is Matt. Matt gets made fun of quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I mean he is the butt of every joke, but at that point he wasn't banned yet. So I actually made jokes about buying the forum from Ant. And I was like, yeah, Ant, I'll give you like $2,000 if you ban Matt.
Okay, don't do that. Yeah, that's gonna get you banned. I don't know what you're thinking.
Because it's funny either way. No, because it's funny either way, right?
Okay, yeah, but you can't post that and not expect to be banned.
Yeah, I can.
Like, come on.
I'm God. I can post whatever I want.
Yeah, but you gotta expect you're gonna get banned for that one. You know, that one got posted, I think.
Look, he even laughed at it. Look, this person who was like skeptical about the ban even said, "Ha!" Like, you know. Anyways, this was the screenshot that I'm talking about. It's actually worse than what I remembered. Because you say, "Oh, it's a fake god." Like, I guess you want to say God is always like the Greco-Roman buff guy or like Egyptian
it's just
guy.
It's like chaos gods or whatever. Like,
I mean, the chaos gods are barely personified as is. They're like nebulous.
Yeah, they're inconsistent with it. Sometimes they are, and then sometimes they are just literally there. Like,
yeah, they're
make them up.
Yeah, they're trans-dual. Yeah, they're trans-dual like infinite times over.
Let me find that actually.
What, them being trans-dual?
No, the quote.
Oh. Yeah, sure, you can grab it. But yeah, like even if you want to say it's not a character, I do think.
I said where'd it come from, so someone linked me your blog. I don't think I said anything after that.
Yeah, you said where did they a fake Warhammer god from? Especially in Warhammer, I think calling the potential a god is fine.
Yeah, so I'm saying I don't think it is like a thing.
Yeah, you were saying it's fake there.
If I'm saying it's like a fake god, then I'm saying I don't think it's a character. Like, that was also before someone sent me your blog. I got sent your blog.
Oh yeah, I know you did. It's because we were watching. Well, I say we, but Zenkai was occasionally sending quotes or whatever, and it was like it was like watching what's the word? It was like watching rats in a maze, and we're like, all right, maybe you should like open up that other door there.
Weird way of describing it.
I mean, that's what it was like. It was like
yeah, I mean, all I seem to have posted was like saying when it said like "Hi, 1A Dr. Mario," which like you have to admit that like looks just weird.
I mean, well, the Dr. Mario thing. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm not shooting the messenger. I'm saying the messenger is like a member of society. Like, put my clown makeup on now since I said society. But I
mean, yeah, I said like literally just the word in response to Dr. Mario for the Warhammer. It's just
if anybody wants to talk about Dr. Mario, I think Nihilate is here. I don't know. I don't want Nihilate here.
Mario versus battles is weird enough. I'm not dealing with two Marios. None of that. No.
Look, nearly every day we make fun of Naya for Mario is okay.
Mario is reality tier. We should upgrade Dragon Ball.
That's not to say that he's wrong about it, but we still bully him.
Yeah, nice.
And then a guy in real life named Mario, so he's reality too.
Anyways.
Yeah, so getting back onto this thing.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to is I think, like, do you retract saying it's a fake Warhammer god?
Well, you know that I mean fake as in I don't think it's a thing. I mean, if you think that I mean like fake as in like having actual malice or whatever, no, I don't think you're like malicious.
For one, I don't know what you mean, right? I have to like.
Well, I said that.
I mean, you can say no. What I'm saying is like you can say what you mean, and that's fine. Like you can say what you mean now, but we will never know what you actually meant. You know.
Well, we had this whole discussion and came to that conclusion. Just before, which is
after, but I'm saying like at that point, right? Looking at this,
so you read fake as like me thinking that you were like actively trying to cause problems or whatever.
No, like fake as in like it's not real. So like there.
I don't think it's a real god because I don't think it's a character.
No, but why? All right, why does a god have to be a character though?
What?
Why can't a god be like a nebulous force?
That's more or less how God is defined, I believe. Let me get that real.
Maybe I'm
God
saying
is like defined as like a being.
Please don't start.
I think this is like pedantic, anyways. Like.
I mean, I think
Brahman is a god, right? Brahman is a god. That's not a being in that sense.
Brahman, that's from Hinduism.
From Hinduism, yeah.
I don't know too much about Hinduism. I'll look into it real quick.
There, and also chaos from Greek mythology and stuff. Like, you come up with lots of examples of like much more nebulous.
Nice universal principle
figures, yeah.
I don't think a god has to be like a buff dude with possibly an animal head.
I don't think the chaos gods do that either.
I don't think they're like. I think the chaos gods are more personified, a little bit.
I think you could still say that like Brahman is a character, and with this potential. I keep on glancing over and seeing Zen's message and chuckling at it. I gotta stop. Derail.
I'm actively trying not to read chat. That should say something. My point is more or less is I don't think like a god has to be this like uber personified thing.
And I don't think I'm saying that either. I'm saying that I mean obviously we have a different standard to it, but yeah. I'll like accept the chaos gods and stuff. They're even when they're at their most abstract, they're still like the chaos gods. Of course, if it was literally like you didn't have the other stuff, and it was just like I don't know. Let's use like we'll say like change is causing some problems. Then like I think that's just the concept of change. But
the issue there is that you don't have a quote where it says change realized its own existence.
Yeah, and I think we've been over the whole realized thing and why we disagree on that.
All right, so asking this before I give an example of something. Do you know like anything at all about DC?
A bit. I mean, I like actively try to not pay attention to the high tiers because I don't care.
Well, I mean,
I read some comics. I know some of the characters, and then unfortunately, I know about the scans for like when a Batman plot hacks that makes him win everything, which is obviously so much better than him winning under his own power, guys. We love to see it. Yeah.
High key, that's my argument. Anyways,
no, that's like an actual thing, which is the worst part of it.
I know. Like, I know. The story of Batman is my argument. Anyways, what I was going to say.
Wait. So you're saying Batman's your argument. What pertains to? Are you saying that his like stupid Trinity plot manipulation thing is like?
I think Batman does have his own metafictional power battery that he occasionally calls upon.
I heard Trinity says that, but it's like stupid.
Trinity says it. Milk War says it. Mixie says it. Loads of things say it.
I think there are ways you can get out of having to use it for versus debates, anyways. But like,
I think
that's neither here nor there.
I could go over my opinions of the story. I think Deathstroke is a much harder character to talk about. But what? All right. So, do you know about like the Overvoid? I guess is my better question.
The Overvoid. I don't know much about it besides that we index it as a character and that it's like.
All right. So the Overvoid existing and then realizing something's there is almost identical to what's happening with like the potential.
Can you like post it? Because I
sure,
don't know anything besides that.
If someone wants to grab it, it's a scan where like I think.
I didn't think that like someone was like wondering why we have.
You're talking about the monitor mind, Hashi?
Yeah, that is monitor mind the year. Yeah, it's like there was nothing. And also, when I looked up the Overvoid, the first thing I found was the Comic Vine thread where they hate it.
Classic. I think that there was actually a dispute on versus battles over stuff like it might have been from Cap. I know there was stuff going on with him and DC or whatever.
The Overvoid quote you're talking about is different. It's just previously there was monitor only, and then a flaw is found at the monitor perfection.
Isn't the Overvoid representative of like the sheet of paper that they draw the comics on? Is that
arguably.
Effectively.
Like the ink blot or whatever.
No, I don't want to talk about DC Cosmology.
You were the one who brought up DC.
I know I brought it up. I don't want to go too far into it.
I changed my mind.
Hashi is still learning to use his words and has to use analogies for everything, and it drives me insane.
Got trapped in the analogy. But we can move away from DC if you want, because as I said, I like actively avoid DC top tiers anyways.
I have a joke I want to make first. What Parrot doesn't know is on my sticky notes around my monitor. One of them is to piss Parrot off. So
you're doing a great job.
Oh yeah, you got your side quest done. Achievement unlocked.
Yeah, another
5% bonus.
Yeah, another one was to involve Naya at some point, but he left or was never here.
I think he said like one word. Well, he left before I mentioned Mario. So
yeah. Either way, I think
opportunity.
Yeah. Either way, my stance remains the same. If I think that.
Yeah, it says the monitor mind is like brain force stuff and all that.
Yeah,
doing shit.
The quote was a bit worse than I remembered. But it's like it's a similar type of instance where it just like realizes stuff.
Yeah, but I think if you had this with the potential, I'd say it's a thing because it's like that specific word realized interacting with the word potential.
Yeah,
is like the worst case thing, because in like so many other things, it'd be a lot clearer that it's like a thing. But because it's realized in potential,
its name is endless potential.
What'd you say?
Its name is endless potential. That's the name of the.
That is what I am disagreeing with.
It's capitalized as a proper noun.
It's always like half of that quote.
That's what a name is.
Yeah, but we can.
No, they capitalize like so much stuff in that quote that you can't really.
We can like go through those with like the process of elimination, though. Like you're
going to say like the word powers is a character, the word unrealized, or the word gods, or the word design.
Yeah, I think they would be if it talked about them realizing themselves.
Yeah,
not.
Like it's not saying like the endless potential realized itself, right? Like that would be like, oh, like there's like the endless potential, and now the endless potential is realized. It's saying the endless potential is realizing its own existence, and then
the endless potential for things. In the absence, and then saying everything.
Yeah, but the endless potential is like
the interaction between the word potential and the laws that we
already know. Like we can go through like all these things, right? It's like is it talking about regular potential? Well, later on, it uses regular potential. Like it's like that word is used, right? So
it's also used earlier. Where and this is the same.
It says the endless potential for these things. For in the absence of absolutely everything, absolutely anything becomes possible, period. And so...
Yes, which is where I derived that it is talking about potential.
Yeah, it's talking about this. Yeah, it is talking about the potential for stuff, right? No disagreements there. And then saying, and so it was this potential for stuff realized, it's not realizing its own potential, it's saying it realized it exists.
And that is the reading I am disagreeing with, which was the conclusion we came to before. And I think we're now moving.
I mean, I know you disagree with it. I just don't think there's grounds to disagree with it.
I think there is, but I think your complaint anyway. It's like a standards thing, anyways. And then you'd moved on to not liking my specific comments. Well, like I know you said yourself, like the matter itself would be pedanticism, if not for how my thing was worded. I think you had an issue with the word saying it was fake.
I mean, I think like when we get to like talking about like things like this, it ends up being pedantic inherently.
If nothing exists, what potential is being realized?
The potential for stuff, which is established to be there.
But there's nothing that exists, according to you.
Yeah, but there's also the potential for stuff to happen.
No, in your interpretation.
No. Hey, I'm not done. You're saying that if nothing exists, what's going to be realized? That applies whether or not you personify potential. If you personify potential, that's still going to be something.
That's not true, because in the other interpretation, what exists is the endless potential.
No, but you're saying that nothing exists.
Yeah, according to you, yes.
No, I did not say that there was no potential.
That's your interpretation. If potential is just being used normally, right, as a
then potential for the things is around. Then potential is not time.
Potential for what, though? But nothing exists yet.
Potential for time, matter, and dimension, as the quote itself states.
But there wouldn't be any potential.
No, there is. The quote says so.
It's saying because nothing existed, so by virtue of that... It doesn't
exist, but there's potential for it to exist. Which is what the quote is saying. That's what the quote says.
No, you're saying the potential is realized. That's different. Realized
I'm taking what?
Hold
on, I'll transcribe the first sentence right
from
now.
What?
I'll transcribe the first sentence right now. The quote says that nothing was around, no time, matter, dimension, but there's potential for these things. Yep. In the moments... Yeah.
So you agree that the potential existed before?
No, I do not agree that the potential is a proper noun.
It was something that was there to make this stuff possible, yes?
No, because the quote doesn't. The quote says that.
So there was nothing. So there was no potential then.
No, that's not what the quote says.
Okay, so there's something there to make these things possible. Yes.
No, the quote literally says that. Let me type the quote out so we can go through
this. Is there something there, or is there not something?
Enough of your. Hold on. I'm going to transcribe the quote. I'm not going to respond to you until that is done.
I'll just post it, dude.
I know what the quote says. It's right here.
Yeah, I'm typing it out so it's easier to use.
I just don't think you get the problem that I'm raising.
Hold on. In the moments before the beginning, there is no time, matter, or dimension, only the endless potential for these things. So there's no time, matter, or dimension, but there could be, is what the quote is saying.
Only the endless potential for these things. Okay, but the potential is there. It exists, yeah? There's a thing that exists.
Potential is not a tangible thing. Potential is saying that it could happen.
Neither is
which is what
time.
The quote says.
Time's not a tangible thing either.
Time is definable as a thing.
It's not tangible. What do you mean definable? You can define potential or something as well.
Okay, if you're... Hold on.
You were saying
If your
before
problem is
that
that potential is abstract, obviously it is. It's like the origin of all these incredibly abstract things in itself.
you're saying. Okay, so how does this change?
There's something there. The point is that there's something there that makes these other things possible, right? And that's what Hashi is talking about. And he's chosen to call it the
You're
endless
saying
potential.
something. I'm saying that there does not have to be a specific entity as a character that makes things possible.
Okay, but before you
And
were
the
saying
state
that it
of
was
things
like
being
it didn't-
possible
it didn't-
is what
before you
No,
were saying
dude,
that
stop.
it
You are
didn't
not part of
exist
this.
at all.
You are an intruder already.
I'm a part of it now. Too bad.
Nah.
Deal with it.
Nah.
Look, I tried to keep
You're saying I'm not a
Potential-
part because your
The fact
argument
that things
sucks.
can exist is what potential is.
You're saying I'm not a part
That
because
is what
you don't
potential
understand
is.
your own argument and you don't like that I have a better argument than you.
I don't think you understand how a one-on-one works. I'm not counting one
You don't
person.
think I understand how what works?
A
I never-
one-on-one. I'm not
I never-
counting
I
one
don't care
person.
what you think a one-on-one is. Why should I give a fuck about that?
Because
You
that's
can
what
run
was
away if
advertised.
you want. I don't care. Go ahead, run
That's what
away.
was advertised.
Yeah, fuck off then. Go on, get lost. Your argument sucks. I've refuted it. You can leave now.
Nah, I'm good. Anyway,
Okay, so you
ignoring
are
him.
going to stick around then. Good. That's what I thought.
Ignoring
Huh?
I said ignoring him. What was the other
Ignoring
guy?
me? Yeah, good luck with that.
I'm not like look. I don't think like you realize just how like you don't understand your own argument. Like I don't know how else to put it. I'm not good with words.
What are you stating?
I'm
The
saying
argument
that
is nonsensical.
yeah,
What is
because
key
either
issuing, firstly? Because that seems to be some sort of service specific.
key issuing is when we have to like, talk about like individual like snapshots of something. So what happens in key issues is that they
Is
talk.
that like not
Yeah.
allowed or whatever? Or
It's lamentable.
Yeah.
for
So
what purpose?
It's just
Alright.
annoying.
I mean, that's like versus debating.
no,
Well, it's a
Yeah.
particular like type of argument that's very annoying, right?
yeah. So you're like going like frame by frame into something to see if somebody actually reacted or something really weird like that. That's what key issuing is.
I'm not saying if anyone reacted though.
No, that's an
No.
example.
That's an example.
Oh yeah, I mean
So-
that. Like, what's the problem?
They go like frame by
If you're
frame
going
when like Iron Man fights Thanos to see like who's reacting and stuff like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. If you want to do that, that's like fine. I don't. Maybe find something better to do with your time, but like it'll work.
Well, yeah, but that's why it's the thing is that it's a pain, right? Like, are you trying to like talk? Like, we're talking. Like,
Yeah,
if
maybe
you were
lame, but it
talking
works.
about, if you were talking about Iron Man, right, and someone comes in, and it's like, well, Iron Man actually never reacts to Thanos.
I don't think that the explanation that you have has weight. It doesn't have any explanatory power, right? If you just said there's this nebulous potential or whatever, like that just was there was nothing before or whatever, we can't really explain anything that happened at that time. But if we say that the endless potential is like some kind of actual tangible thing, then it actually makes sense for things to come from it, for something to be actualized, right?
I don't think it makes sense for it to be a tangible thing in a state where there's not supposed to be.
You ignored what I just said. I'm talking about the explanatory power of either of these things.
Yeah, and I'm saying that in response to your explanation, that causes another problem of why is this thing here when this is supposed to be a state where there isn't anything except for possibility.
Yeah,
It says the absence of absolutely everything.
No, but it is that possibility, though.
Yeah, no, we're both
That's
saying
what
that
it
there's
is.
possibilities for stuff to say because the quote directly says that. The dispute is whether this is like a character or whether it is like just the possibility for
Okay,
that.
well, what makes something a character?
Not this. A character is like, to me, I think a character needs to be more specific than just like a force. I don't think it can be like
That's too vague. What do you mean by more specific?
more specific. I'd have them take actions, have like
It does take
a
actions. It
fine
makes everything
specificity.
that exists.
That's not what that says.
That's an action that happens as a result of the potential.
It realized its own existence, and by that action, it created the universe and all planes
Yeah.
of ran
So if you guys are
parallel.
going to define this as a character, what is your definition of character?
Something in which we can recognize actionable qualities as having an effect within the story.
To recognize actionable qualities, well then would you not be able to describe just natural phenomena as
No.
characters?
Give me an example of a natural phenomena performing an action.
A volcano erupting.
That's not an action that the volcano performs.
Erupting is an action.
The volcano also isn't separate from other things, right? It's like a part of nature as a whole.
So why is nature exempt when this thing...
I'm not saying it's exempt. I'm saying that you're giving agency to something that doesn't have any agency.
And that's what I'm saying.
Why would a volcano have agency?
Why would potential have agency?
Because if it didn't, nothing would happen.
why would... Okay, so why is nothing able to happen if
It
this thing
has
doesn't
to
have
be
agency?
capable of
But stuff is able to happen if the other thing doesn't have agency.
Huh?
A bonus action.
Look, I was sitting on that one.
Well, what did you say? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm saying, why... You're saying that if it doesn't have agency, nothing can happen. Why is that the case here, but not elsewhere? We clearly know that things that actions can happen with something that doesn't have agency. You said...
I can't tell.
You said in response to me... What did you say? Am I cutting
I
out?
can't tell what you're saying.
Am I cutting out or something?
You just
you're
muffled.
Yeah.
Let me check.
Mute my music.
Let me check audio settings real quick. They seem normal.
You sound fine to me, Walk.
It might be on your end then.
Just try say it again, and I'll try listening more carefully.
Hello. All right. So what you're saying was you were saying that what's it called? Nothing can happen if the potential doesn't have agency. Why is that the case here? Why would it have to have agency for stuff to happen?
Because otherwise, nothing would have.
Something out of nothing is like very common in like religion or whatever. Like that's not exactly like an unheard of concept.
I think religion is a really bad example for your statement. Can you give an example of a religion where an action happens and then an action isn't required for stuff to exist?
Let me find something.
Like, what's your analogy? Like Abrahamic religion? Oh, there's a god. Hinduism, there's a god that did that. You know, like all of these have an agent performing an action.
Isn't the standard quote like in the beginning there was nothing and then there was God? Like God is out of nothing.
No,
I'm not a theologist, so like
no. Well, obviously that interpretation could exist, right? But I'm just saying that like your appeal to religion.
Like I'm saying that's certainly like a very like widespread idea that exists, given that quote's like existence. And I don't see why that would be add the possibility for Warhammer.
No, I don't think that most people think that like God just came into existence. I think he just always existed.
Yeah, most people do think that.
Yeah, and also the potential didn't come into existence; like it was already there.
Right. Well, I'm not like a theologist, so I'll like drop religion.
I am a theologist, unfortunately for you. So let's just not
regretting your life choices. Unfortunately,
no, unfortunately for you, I meant.
Okay.
Talk about this. I don't want to annoy you with like Kabbalah and shit, so let's just not.
Oh God, the 1A Jewish stuff that people won't shut up about.
No, I hate talking about it being strong. I'm not that kind of discussion.
People are way too fucking obsessed with like funny Jewish tree 1A. I fucking hate it.
It definitely is that strong, but like I don't like talking.
Chill out.
It just is, but like it's.
Yeah, no, it's just like I'm sick of hearing about it.
Walk, if it means something to you, I was raised Jewish, and I didn't really hear much about Kabbalah until I joined this online community.
It's
like Jewish mysticism.
Yeah, it's mysticism,
yeah.
So it's not like a standard sort of thing.
Even like Talmudic stuff is like not standard, or rabbinic stuff is really unusual.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the power scalers get their hands on whatever they can use to...
Yeah, and they usually don't read anything. They just quote mine or whatever.
You know. All right. Well, that's off topic. What are we on again? We're on the potentials, consciousness, or like lack.
You're trying to give an example of like how this doesn't need to be an action, right?
Yeah. Let me get the quote real quick. We already posted it. I'm just in another channel.
Yeah.
Debating. All right. Yeah, no. Anything becomes possible. If anything becomes possible, that would just include like stuff happening regardless of whether or not anything is taking action, because something happening without action is a thing.
But that stuff coming into existence is as a result of the endless potential. Like there's actually a relationship between those two. It's not like
the fact that it can come into existence is what I believe that the potential is. Because I'm saying it as a noun and not as a proper noun.
But the potential is the thing doing that.
I don't agree.
If the potential wasn't there, then it wouldn't happen.
If the potential wasn't there, then it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
But it can happen. And that fact that it can happen is potential.
It is as a result of the potential, yeah.
Also, I gotta go in like a bit. But...
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think this other explanation actually like adds anything to the explanatory power of the phrase, right? It's also not very interesting to just say stuff happened or whatever.
I mean, whether it's interesting or not, I don't think is really. I mean, well, hold on. If you want to like have a discussion or whatever, whether it's interesting or not, can be relevant. I don't think it's relevant in the sense of like, I don't think this is a character. Like whether or not it would be interesting for it to be a character.
I don't think that you can separate those two things.
I think
you can't make interpretations without some kind of aesthetic judgment.
What do you mean by that?
You're making a determination on its interestingness when you make a statement about whether it's a character or not. So, for instance, I don't think that there's something contained within the text to be found. Like the book doesn't signify anything on its own. The reader is what brings all signification.
On something's interestingness, I was saying that I don't think how interesting something is like relevant when I'm deciding whether or not I think of something as a character. It can be like an interesting idea to consider something as a character. Although in this case, if it's just never mentioned again, I guess not. It just wouldn't add anything. But
it is mentioned in other places actually. Hashi was trying to get you to admit what would be good evidence, and you wouldn't. So
he said that it wasn't.
No, I said hyper. No, I alluded that it might not.
He was trying to get you to come to some kind of standard on what evidence was okay, so that you couldn't back out of it when he posted it.
Well, what do you have? Just post it.
See, but now you're going to come up with excuses for why it doesn't count.
You instead of setting up,
which is what you've already done.
Yeah, instead of setting up a goalpost, you're just saying kick it to that side of the field, and then I'll tell you if it hit the goal.
You decided that this argument was wrong before you saw any of the evidence for it.
I read the blog, which is the evidence.
No, but you said that it was wrong before you read the blog.
Yeah, and I read the blog. And
okay, so you had some sort of conclusion on whether it was true or not before you knew what the evidence was, and now you want to do the same thing again. You've already made your judgment. So if we let you see it now, you're just going to come up with whatever excuse you want to say that it doesn't count, which is what people do when they're having, when they're having debates about interpretation.
Also, I looked around for the potential beforehand. It wasn't literally just off of nothing.
Yeah.
I saw the potential. Hey, I don't think that's a thing. Am I missing something? I looked around for it, didn't find anything. There we go.
Yeah, that's not a very good way of going about coming to a conclusion, though, is it?
Yeah, it works fine.
You literally just reinforce
a Google search or something. I don't know. Personally, I would have suspended judgment, but either way.
I don't think it's serious enough to do that because it's just versus debating whatever.
Well, it's the stand. It's just a common practice standard. Whether you want to say it's serious or not, it's impacting the decisions you're making now about it, right? So it's at least.
I would disagree because at this point, most of our talking has just been about the blog.
You say that you disagree a lot, but then you just say nothing that actually is a counter argument.
I just did. Most of our talking has been about the blog posts. So if blog posts have no impact, how is that going to happen?
What?
Yeah.
The conclusion that you came to before you seen the blog post, I'm saying, is affecting your argument now. And then you just said, no, it isn't. But it clearly is. You came to a conclusion before.
I think I misheard you, actually. Because I think you were saying that the blog post wasn't being impactful at all. And I was saying that, we just spent, an hour talking about the blog post.
No, obviously I know you're talking about that. But what I mean is, that, you already have a preconceived idea of what you want to interpret the piece, and so you are. I don't see your interpretation as existing. Clearly it exists, right? Do you think that our interpretation exists?
Oh, no, I think you can interpret it that way. I do not.
Okay, so why would one interpretation be better than another, then?
Because I read it in that way, and I support it with how I've read it.
Well, that's
the interpretation that I feel
that's a circular argument, right? The reason
You're saying why is the interpretation more important? Are you saying more important to me or more important in general? Because you're saying more important in general.
Why would we prefer it? However you want to put it.
Why would you have to prefer it? I don't think you have to prefer it necessarily. The reason I preferred it was...
I'm not saying have to. I'm saying why would we prefer it?
Why would you prefer it? Due to the wording of the prior sentences and the lack of economics.
That's a circular argument.
No. Why would you prefer it?
I already understand that you're doing interpretation. Okay, I understand this. These are both interpretations of the same thing.
How is it a circular argument to say that the wording of the text is what makes me choose one interpretation over another?
Because your justification for your interpretation is that your interpretation led you to that idea.
No, well, hold on. You haven't contested the...
Looking at what the words say is interpretation. They're the same thing.
Okay, but that's a different interpretation because
Okay, here, let me give you an example of like what wouldn't be a circular argument, right? I prefer my interpretation because it has more explanatory power about the cosmology. It's more interesting to talk about, and it lines up more with the ethos of what the verse actually operates under.
Yeah, but none of those are factors that determine whether or not something's a character. Whether
Yes,
or
they
not
do.
it's like
Those are the factors. Those are factors that would impact any interpretation.
Okay, no, but why does that determine whether it's a character?
Well, how do you decide between two interpretations then?
Between two interpretations, it depends on the condition I'm trying to achieve.
Really, there's no like. Well, okay, what is that condition then? Like in this case, for you, so you're admitting that you have a condition of your interpretation. So what is it?
No, actually, in this case, I don't care.
Okay, so what you just said was wrong then.
No, because you're asking about in general.
Well, but
in general, if I want to pick an interpretation,
okay, so only in general,
I'm going to first look for, like, all right, why am I interpreting this?
That is by the way, not what you.
I guess I'll recant my statement. I'll say, my objective here would be to understand the text because I think that's like the most basic. That's
just interpretation again. So, like, how do you now choose between two interpretations?
Between which one I think makes more sense with how the text is written.
That's just interpretation again. How do you decide between two?
I decide between the two with which one is more supported through the text.
But that's just interpretation. That's a non sequitur. That doesn't make any sense. You can't say interpretation to how do I decide interpretation. You've got two possible readings of a text, right? How do you know which one you prefer?
Also, what I used to inform that afterwards was looking around and seeing if anybody else had found this other one. Nobody else has found this other one.
That's also just interpretation. Okay, so you would decide based on
interpretation. You're right. Just like straight up say whether or not
you're right. It's like a community agreement, right? Like if more people are recognizing this as a thing, then I'll believe it, right?
Yeah, I think communal agreement is the closest you can get.
So you're a popularist. You're a popularist then. So if you were around when Copernicus was around, you would have said the Earth was flat.
I do not know about Copernicus actually. Wait.
Or when Galileo, if you were around before Newton, you would have said gravity doesn't exist when Newton explained it to you, right?
I don't actually know how Newton explained it. Was Newton?
Well, that's what you're saying. You would choose based on the popularity of the statement, right? So Newton comes up to you and he says, "Look, I got this great theory of gravity."
I don't think that's a very good comparison, though, because gravity would be backed up by specific evidence. Here, if it's just a one-off quote,
it's the same.
You can't really go either way.
I don't see the difference at all.
Empirical evidence I do not see is the same as a literary.
What makes empirical evidence special from literary evidence?
Because there's not really room for interpretation if something is just going to straight up happen.
That's definitely wrong. Of course there's room for interpretation with physiological phenomena.
Well, hold on. With Earth being flat, flat Earth models aren't really able to properly explain the...
Okay, but you're not making that decision based on popularism. You're making it based on some other sort of criteria, right? What is that criteria?
Yeah, that other criteria that is not present here because there isn't, like, something... There isn't a specific standard to go point to.
What is that criteria and why is it not present in literary interpretation?
I've said that criteria. It was the...
I must have missed that.
My mouth is getting really dry. Specific demonstrable, like evidence. You can just go find it and source it.
I think you can demonstrate evidence from a text as well.
I don't think that's being done here. And if you apparently not have other texts later on, then like
okay. No, I get you. So demonstrate whether it's demonstrated to be true, like supporting evidence, right? That's what you're saying is how you would choose. What's the supporting evidence for your interpretation?
Well, let me go grab something to drink. My mouth is like dry.
No. What's the supporting evidence for your interpretation?
No, I said for my interpretation. Yeah, the wording of how it says.
That's not supporting evidence. That's the same evidence. What's your supporting evidence?
In this case, I said that there wasn't.
Okay, so then you don't know whether this interpretation is better. So we're back down to it again. Okay, so now why should we choose between two interpretations? You can't use supporting evidence because that's not the case here.
What? You haven't put up stuff for yours.
So we broke down that like your popularism idea was really bad, right? And then we started talking about supporting evidence. Yeah, popularism is a really stupid way to decide whether something is correct, whether an interpretation is good. It's just a
problem is Games Workshop just straight up has the authority to say whether or not this is true.
No, they don't. They don't have any such authority. Nobody has an authority.
They are the ones who have their IP rights and are able to just
Look, there's a very basic literary principle called death of the author. We can talk about it if you want. It's obvious you don't understand it, but no, Games Workshop
I know
does
what
not
death
have...
of the author is. I'm just
Really? Have you read the essay?
The essay? I did not read the specific essay.
Okay, so you don't actually know anything about it then. That's good to know.
No, I know that the general idea of it is that the author's opinion does not necessarily have any more weight than the others.
Wrong.
And that they are...
That's wrong. That's wrong. Death of the author says there's no such thing as an author. Literally, there is no such thing as an author. The only thing that exists is a scripter. And what a scripter does is brings other intertextual pieces of evidence together to form some kind of whole. And because of they're bringing together these fuzzy bricks of intertextual evidence, they have no basis in which to make some sort of conclusion about the meaning of a term, right?
Well, so you're saying they're bringing together bricks of the text and they have no basis. Why?
Yeah, so, for instance, any kind of text, and text could go for just any kind of media or whatever, is using, a language has to already exist in order for the text to come about, right? But this language isn't something created independently by the author that's transported to the reader's mind, right? It's a cultural thing. And because of the cultural... Oh, fuck. You okay?
No, sorry about that. Yeah, no.
That was loud.
No, it's just sort of falling off my desk. Sorry.
No worries. But because the language is located culturally, the author doesn't have authority over what the language actually means. And that goes for Games Workshop as well.
That's not how it works legally.
I don't care how it works legally. Like,
I do.
Why?
Because I'm studying law. And
that's not a good. Then you should be opposed to these kind of laws, right? Because they're a way for businesses and large corporations to take control of certain property rights. But either way, like even if you want to say it's the law that Games Workshop can make money and distribute these properties, they don't have the right to interpret these properties unilaterally. That's
I think they have the same right as anybody else would.
Okay, well that kind of like poo-poos.
Well, I mean, in terms of legal right, they have like a superior right, but it's like.
Not to interpretation, they don't. But nobody has the right to interpretation specifically.
Interpretation?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, Games Workshop doesn't get to tell us what things mean from their thing, and they're incapable of doing that anyway, because if they were to tell us what something means, they would have to use more words that would be up for interpretation.
I thought you were making a joke about, like, writing quality.
About what, sorry?
Writing quality.
No, I actually like a lot of the writing in Games Workshop.
Yeah, it's it depends on the author.
Most of the novels are good, but yeah, excluding like Goto and whatever. But yeah,
fucking the strawmen of like Goto and Ward.
But yeah,
they're not really strawmen; they're just bad.
Well, Ward is better, but anyway,
yeah, he's improved.
I don't think the Games Workshop has the ability to tell us what is meant by the text. They actually can't. Like, I think that it's epistemologically impossible for them to do that.
How so epistemologically?
Because they can only give us more interpretation to wrestle with, right? They can't actually give us a conclusion to the meaning of any term.
How would you get if you ask Games Workshop like a yes or no question and they just like give you one word answer? Where are you going to get interpretation from?
Well, what's the basis? Like, where is this coming from? Like, that's not a very good example. But the point is that Games Workshop saying yes is predicated on yes meaning something culturally. And so they don't actually have the power to determine what they're saying means. The person that has the power to determine what they're saying is the reader. And that goes for when Games Workshop, but that goes for when Games Workshop makes statements about a textual body as well. They're not in a position.
You're already working within a consistent framework. You already know what yes means.
That's impossible. No, I think that's impossible. You can't say that. There's no such thing as a consistent framework of language. No, you can't do that because the meaning of every word is dependent on other words, so it can never be consistently homogeneous.
Okay, but there is like no extra context to modify the yes here. It's literally just
you know that the word yes didn't even exist in ancient Greek, right? They would repeat what the other person said.
Yeah, they spoke in Greek.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a cultural phenomenon, but yes.
Yeah. So tell me within, and we collectively understand.
Tell me what yes means.
Yes is an affirmative statement.
What does affirmative mean?
Affirmative means used to confirm or express agreement.
What does confirm mean?
Confirm means to what? Are you just going to go around like this forever?
Yes, this is my point. Look, words are infinitely deferred.
Yes, but we still understand each other, and as such, have some sort of.
No, I don't think that we do.
If we don't have any sort of collective understanding, then how would language work?
Because we're both interpreting on both sides. Like, as Gardner would put it, right, it's like a three-party system. There's some sort of cultural body of language in the middle, and we're both interpreting. And so
you're like posing some sort of like, I guess, sort of like form of language, and both of us kind of get to a. So proposing like a form of language when both of us are kind of interpreting that as like our own ways, and they just like line up.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah, and sometimes mistakes happen because of that a lot, right? People talk past each other, or they don't really understand what someone else is saying. Okay. And sometimes that doesn't happen, but it could be, and sometimes like we don't think that's happened, but it could be happening. The point being that everybody interprets each specific thing their own way, and the way that they interpret that thing is based on their own life experience, which is different for everybody, and also the historical and cultural context that they're reading it.
Yes, that's language.
Yeah, but that's
why that's how language works. But
that's why the governing body. That's why a governing body can't now come in and make some sort of declaration on what something means, because what something means is contingent.
What room for alternative interpretation is like left here with this like single word answer?
What do you mean? I'm proving on a much more fundamental level that this is possible for all uses of language. This would prove it for all cases.
Prove it for all cases, then why? Yeah. Then how does it apply to the specific one?
What specific one?
Of the single word answer.
Well, answer to what question? Like, you haven't actually given me any context. You're trying to like avoid context. But my point is that context is what generates meaning.
Is the potential a character under the standards of what's your name? Webcamparrot?
Under my standards. Well, I wouldn't put it that way.
Yeah, I just think like someone would probably like set up what they want.
I would say I have a certain way. Oh, so you're saying like if we asked Games Workshop and we were like, is the potential a character? And they said no.
Yeah, no.
What would the alternate interpretation of that be?
Yes, that's what I was saying. I think we took way too long to get to that conclusion.
Well, my point is that Games Workshop isn't capable of making that judgment in the first place. Because the meaning of whether the potential is considered a character is contextually dependent.
Which is why you define character beforehand.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, like, what we would even understand from the words on the page is culturally and contextually dependent. And Games Workshop doesn't have access to a trans-cultural, trans-historical reading.
Why would we need a trans-historical reading when we're all in the same time period?
Well, you would have. What do you mean? Like, time would pass since they read it and since I read it. They're not from the same. They're not interpreting it at the same time as me, or the same culture as me, or the same life experience as me, or anything.
Okay, but how is there like? How long is this ago written?
This
let's say, yeah, I don't know. Let's just say like 5 years. That sounds about good, right?
Yeah.
Why would 5 years passage of time like? I don't think that's enough.
I don't know. What's the difference between a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old? Or a 20-year-old and a 25-year-old? A big difference.
That's like getting into biology and stuff, though, which isn't really.
No, I'm talking about like what that person would think about the reading. The person.
That's also like psychology and like life experience.
Well, it's interpretation. That's what interpretation is.
Okay, but how is that going to change in this specific quote?
Because it was read by a certain person at a certain time in a certain context that is not the context of all readers. And never could be.
If it's not the context of all readers, then why would it stop Games Workshop from being able to issue an answer?
Because they could only give an answer from one context, because meaning is contextual. So they wouldn't be able to.
Why is that not still an answer if they're the ones who are?
It's not an answer. It is an answer. It's just not an authoritative answer. It doesn't have any power over interpretation as a whole, or what something.
So I think that's where we are disagreeing, because in the case of
there's no room for disagreement.
No, there isn't.
If you think that it has authoritative power.
In the case of something ambiguous, I'm fine deferring to what the author states. You are not.
You can say that, but it's baseless.
Okay.
Because the author isn't in a better position to interpret than I am.
I think they ultimately would be, having been the one who has the most experience with their own.
That doesn't mean anything. Like, having more experience with something could mean your interpretation is less accurate. That happens all the time. There's an experiment called the Lutschen's water jar experiment, an Eistelung effect.
Sorry, what?
It's called the Lutschen. Don't worry, it's just the name of an experiment. Don't worry.
No, I won't look it up with this. I was going to type it down.
It's called the Lutschen's water jar experiment. Luchin space water jar experiment. Right? And basically, it was a type of test done where people were given problems to solve involving pouring water into different containers. And the short answer is that people that had done it more times before got later answers incorrect.
Later.
Knowing more made them worse at solving the problem.
What do you mean by? Oh God.
They were more aware of the problem because they'd done it more times before. That type of problem, right? This
later answered. Yeah.
Yeah, and it affected their ability to be accurate with later answers.
Is this Einstein effect?
The Einstein effect, yes.
Einstein effect. All right, predisposition.
I'm probably butchering that in the German, but that is how I read it.
I'm not German either, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, German. Search for us to solve these problems.
And I mean, I've already proven that meaning is contextual.
They applied the same solution to later problems, but they're not the same problem.
No, it's the same type of problem, I said. But what I'm saying is that knowing more about that type of problem made them less able to answer that type of problem.
So it's like the idea of getting set in your ways and not coming in with a clear mind?
Yeah, knowing more about something can make you worse at dealing with something.
Okay, but when it's your own work, and
I think you're even more blind to it. Yeah, you're even more blind to it. You have way more connection to it that could easily offset your interpretation. But it doesn't matter. Like, you could prefer that interpretation if you wanted, but it shouldn't. It can't be because it's from a particular context. Because all contexts are equal. Like, you can't because meaning itself is generated from context. So there's actually no place to evaluate them against each other. Like, we can't step outside of context to decide which of two contexts is superior.
Why am I being pinged?
Huh?
Didn't you have to leave in like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Someone's pinging me. You're saying something about all contexts being equal and not wanting to evaluate it because context is what you evaluate from, is what you're saying?
Yeah, there is a way to step outside of context and compare which two contexts are more authoritative.
Okay, and your means of doing that were whether it was interesting, whether it fits with the ethos of the verse.
Well, those aren't authoritative judgments. Those are why we would prefer a certain interpretation.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm just trying to recap. What was the third one you said?
It was like the ethos of the given like setting.
No, that was the one it was the ethos, whether it was interesting, and there was a third
one. Whether it has explanatory power.
Explanatory power, all right.
Yeah.
So interesting, I just don't think we agree. I don't find it particularly necessarily more or less interesting whether or not this potential is a specific entity or not.
Well, I have reasons for why it would be interesting that I gave already. So,
how so?
Because it actually offers something for us to say about this point in history for the cosmology, and it gives us something to say about the cosmology in general that fits with what 40K in fantasy is a property.
So you're mixing that with the ethos point. So
yeah, I mean, it's not that they're not interrelated. Of course they are.
Well, yeah. So what is your point with the ethos then?
But what's been presented to us thus far with the way that cosmic entities are operating within 40K has a certain tone to it that is suitable here. That I don't.
So you're saying that
I don't think is suitable for your example.
So you're saying how the chaos gods and stuff work is going to inform that potential could be like a super chaos god.
Yeah.
Is that roughly what it is saying?
Sure, that's probably not the best way of putting it, but sure, that's the vibe. Yeah.
All right. So what was the third one you said was the explanatory power?
Yeah.
And you're saying there was that it offers more power to explain what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So of these, whether or not you prefer the interpretation or not, those, I'm still not seeing how these criteria that you're going to set are going to. I don't have time to get into each one because I have to leave in 5 minutes. But I don't see how you're going to determine whether something is a character based off of those criteria, as opposed to just whether or not you prefer.
That's supported by those criteria is that it's a character. That's why we would prefer the interpretation that it's a character or god in this loose sense. Those are the reasons why.
Okay, so those are the reasons why.
Because they're more interesting, because they line up better with the verse, and because it has more explanatory power.
More interesting, lines up better with the verse, has more explanatory power. I mean, I'll continue with this at some point, but I actually do have to leave. That all right, or?
Yeah, don't worry. Personally, I was under the impression that Hashi was having this conversation for fun anyway. I'm not trying to
oh yeah, no.
Do whatever you want. I'm just talking.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go at some point or whatever, we can do that, but I have shit to do. I think let's just finish up real quick. There's problems with like a statement he wrote. I really need to get a drink. Let's just finish up real quick because I remember his problem was how I specifically phrased my statement of saying it was like fake or whatever. Like 5 minutes or whatever.
What you mean now? You just didn't think that it was an extant character, not that it was made like that somebody was fabricating or being malicious.
Oh yeah, no, that's not what I meant by fake. No.
Yeah.
If that was the issue, then yeah, no, that's like my bad, I guess. But,
it could come across that way, but yeah, you elaborate.
Like nighttime Discord conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. You just didn't think there was evidence for this thing.
Yes. That is my claim. I do not think that there's evidence.
And then you
I'm
have
not saying
to
that like you're like making
modulate. You have to slightly modulate your position because there is some evidence, but you just don't think it's a character anymore.
Yeah. Not that like I don't think you're like inventing text or whatever. Yeah. No. Actually, I think someone did that on like
people do that all the time, and it's really annoying. Yeah. But I think
I don't deal with like anime verses, so it's easier because I can just go and check off like libgen or something. It's not in Japanese.
Yeah, and also like why would I talk to you about something made up? You know, that would be really weird. Maybe you would troll somebody for like 2 minutes about it. But I don't think that you would.
Well, I guess you could like argue that like
actually
constructs or whatever like made up, but that's like cheating. Not really the point. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. See you.
See you, dude. Yeah.